They say hunger can drive you mad. In my case, it almost drove me into a grave. I was 13, starving, and the cheerful jingle of an ice cream truck sounded like salvation. I didn't know it was a siren song leading me to a monster. I'm from Nashville, and I was 13 years old when I ran away from home. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because that's exactly what happened. For years, my house was a place where I survived, not where I live. My stepmother had a way of making everything my fault. My father was an alcoholic and barely cared about me. One night, I packed a bag with 2 t-shirts, my phone charger, and the money I'd hidden away. I told myself I'd be gone for a day, maybe 2. I disappeared for 7 days. The streets didn't seem scary at first. I slept in parks, behind a closed library, under a bus stop shelter when it rained. I learned how to eat slowly to make food last. I learned how to pretend I wasn't cold. By the 7th night, I had $4 and some change left. My stomach hurt so badly it felt like it was folding in on itself. I hadn't eaten since the morning before. I was sitting on the sidewalk watching the sky turn orange when I heard an ice cream truck. I almost laughed. It felt unreal, like a joke the universe was playing on me. Ice cream? Really? But the sound got closer, rolling down the street like it did every summer, and my body moved before my brain could stop it. I waved. The truck slowed. The brakes squealed softly. The window slid open and a man leaned out. He was middle-aged with a patchy beard and tired eyes, the kind of guy you wouldn't look at twice. "Bit late for ice cream, kid," he said with a half smile. I shrugged. "Well, it's all I can afford for dinner." He hesitated for a second. "All right then. What'll it be?" I picked the cheapest thing on the menu. When he handed it to me, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I took a bite and nearly cried. Cold, sweet, real food. We talked while I ate. He asked where my parents were. I said I had nowhere to go. I don't know why I said that. Maybe I was tired of lying. Maybe I wanted someone to notice. He hummed thoughtfully. "A runaway, huh?" The tone made me uncomfortable, but I nodded anyway. He stared at me for a long moment, thinking. Then he smiled again. "That's rough. You look starving." My stomach betrayed me and growled loud enough for both of us to hear. He laughed. "How about this? My apartment's just down the street. My wife's cooking. Hot food, real food. You can sleep there for the night. No trouble." Every alarm in my head went off at once. But hunger is powerful, sometimes stronger than fear, stronger than common sense. "Okay," I said. I got into the truck. The door slammed shut behind me with a heavy thud. The inside smelled like sugar and metal. The cheerful jingle started again as he drove, but the streetlights began to fade quickly. We passed houses and closed shops. For a few minutes, I actually felt relief that I wouldn't be sleeping under the sky that night. Then I noticed the road. We weren't in the city anymore. We were driving toward the outskirts, past construction signs. My heart started pounding. "I thought you said it was close." He didn't answer right away. He just kept driving, like he didn't care that I'd spoken. Moments later, he pulled into a dark, unfinished lot and shut off the engine. He turned toward me and smiled, not the tired smile from before. This one didn't reach his eyes. He said, "I lied. I don't have a wife. Honestly, it's been a while since I've had company." My entire body went cold. I grabbed for the door handle. It wouldn't open. I pulled harder. Nothing. "Hey, open the door," I said, my voice shaking. He leaned closer. I could smell his awful breath. "Relax. Don't be like that. You still need someone to keep you warm, right?" Panic exploded in my chest. I screamed. I kicked the door. My hands slipped. My throat burned. My mind screamed the same thought over and over. "You messed up. You messed up. You messed up." He reached for my face. I twisted away, crying, begging, words spilling out that didn't even sound like me. And just as he was about to take advantage of me, a beam of light cut through the window. A man dressed as a night security guard stood outside, shining a flashlight into the truck. He yelled that this was a restricted parking area and the truck had to be moved. The ice cream man froze. I saw fear cross his face. He swore under his breath, yanked the door open, and shoved me out. I hit the ground hard. My shoulders scraped. My knees screamed with pain. I didn't care. I was outside. I was breathing air again. The guard looked shocked and confused, not understanding why a teenager was in an ice cream truck so late at night. The ice cream truck sped away, tires spraying dirt, the jingle playing one last time like a sick joke. I crawled toward the guard, sobbing so hard I could barely speak. I told him everything. My words came out messy and broken, but he listened. He wrapped a jacket around me and called the police. I gave the officers as much of the man's description as I could remember, but he was never caught. That night, I didn't go back to my father's house. I specifically asked the police to take me to another family member. My aunt took me in after that. I had my own room. A lock on the door, food in the fridge. I'm safer now. But sometimes when I hear ice cream trucks pass by, that night still comes back to me because hunger made me trust the wrong smile, and I don't think I'll ever forget that sound. Surviving a monster in human skin is one thing, but what happens when the shadows themselves start to speak? If your heart is still pounding, hit that like button to keep the darkness at bay, and subscribe now to join our circle in the shadows, or you might just find yourself lost in the woods of our next tale. Welcome to Bosey Woods. At nightfall, once the sun goes down, I tell people it's honest work. Truth is, most of the time, it's just a job. You smile, you serve, you wave, and you move on. I sell ice cream at Bosey Woods, where laughter fades quickly between the trees and the water. Some evenings the music feels too loud, like it doesn't belong in those woods. When the sun dips low, I swear something waits beyond the trails, watching for me to leave. That night started like any other. Early summer, warm but not suffocating yet. The park was slowly emptying. Parents calling out, kids complaining, a basketball dragging across the mulch. I parked near the basketball courts, cut the engine, and let the melody finish before turning it off. I was already thinking about heading home when I noticed the kid. He stood a few steps from the window. No jumping, no pointing, no tugging at a parent's sleeve like the others. Just there, alone, still. He couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. He was very thin. His eyes were calm in a way that felt wrong for a child, like he was waiting for a bus instead of an ice cream truck. He stepped closer. "What'll it be, little guy?" I asked in my usual friendly tone. He slowly looked up at me. There was a scar on his forehead, deep and jagged, like the skin had split and healed poorly. "Chocolate," he said in a low, flat voice. No please, no excitement. I reached into the freezer, and that's when I noticed his hands resting on the counter. They were filth, not playground dirt. Real soil packed under his nails, like he'd been digging for hours. His knuckles were bruised, ringed with dried blood. His clothes were stiff, stained with dark blotches. A bad feeling crawled up my spine, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. "Anything else?" I asked. He didn't answer, just watched me. I handed him the cone without asking more questions. Something about his face tightened my chest. He took it, turned around, and started to walk away. "Hey!" I leaned out the window. "Kid, you have to pay." He didn't even flinch, just kept walking. I slammed the freezer shut, irritation flaring. "Don't ignore me," I shouted, louder now. "That's not how this works." He was already halfway across the park. I followed him, expecting him to run or laugh or do something normal. Instead, he kept walking at the same slow pace. No matter how fast I moved, I couldn't close the distance. It was like the space between us stayed exactly the same. I even thought about turning back and letting him keep the ice cream, but my legs wouldn't stop, like something was pulling me toward him. I followed that kid, my own will slipping away. We took the paved path that turned to dirt as it entered the woods. The trees grew closer together. The sounds of the park faded until all I could hear was my own breathing. "Kid, this isn't funny. Come back." He stopped. I stopped too. He turned around, and for the first time, he smiled. I had never seen a smile that wide, like he was baring teeth instead of smiling. My anger snapped. "You think this is funny? Stealing and running off?" He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he bolted into the woods. I chased him without thinking. Branches slapped my arms, my heart pounding. I caught flashes of him between the trees, small, fast, always just out of reach, until he slipped into an old cabin I didn't even know was there. The cabin was rotting, half collapsed, its windows boarded shut. I burst inside, chest heaving. "All right?" I shouted. "Game's over." The cabin was empty. Dust floated in the air. No kid, no footsteps, just silence. I took a step back, ready to leave. Then the floor gave way beneath me. I fell hard, catching myself on splintered wood. Beneath the boards was a shallow pit, and inside it, bones, human bones. A child's skeleton, wrapped in rags identical to the clothes the boy had been wearing. My stomach twisted. I stared at the cracked skull. The fracture ran across it in the exact same place as the scar on his forehead. Then I heard a small laugh behind me. I froze. Chills ran down my arms. "Who's there?" I asked. Even though I already knew, the air felt heavy, like the cabin was holding its breath. I turned slowly. The boy was standing in the doorway. This time, he wasn't smiling. He was crying. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "You found me," he said softly. "Please, tell my mom I love her." My vision blurred. I felt like I was about to pass out. I closed my eyes for just a second. When I opened them again, the boy was gone. I stood there, alone, God knows how long. Eventually, I called 911. The police came. They confirmed the remains belonged to Ryan, 8 years old, missing for 3 years. Later, they confirmed he'd been killed by a blow to the head. I stood with his parents at the funeral. His mother cried into my shirt. His father gripped my hand like he'd collapse if I let go. That night, I dreamed of a boy in the woods, holding a melting ice cream cone, waiting. Honestly, it started off pretty well. My 15-year-old sister, Kathy, was heading out for a movie night with her friends. Before leaving, she handed me a few crumpled bills. "How about a pizza from that place you like?" she said. "And make sure you lock the doors." When the front door closed behind her, the feeling of freedom was incredible. I was genuinely having a great time. I turned the TV volume up and stretched out on the couch. For the first time in my life, no one was yelling at me about bedtime or homework. About an hour later, I got hungry, so I picked up my phone to order a pizza. I was scrolling through the menu when I heard a faint chime. At first, I thought it was coming from the TV. Then I muted it. The melody of an ice cream truck drifted in through the open window. It was already dark, the kind of night where the streetlights buzz and insects slam into them. Ice cream trucks never came around that late, not on our street. I glanced outside. The truck was parked near the curb, its lights too bright against the empty road. No kids anywhere, just the truck, its music looping over and over. An ice cream truck waiting on an empty street felt strange, but my craving was stronger than my instincts. I grabbed my sneakers and ran outside. The ice cream man leaned out of the window. He was old, his face deeply wrinkled, his eyes so small I could barely make out his pupils. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Late night craving?" he asked. "Yeah. My sister gave me some money," I said. He nodded slowly. "Parents okay with it?" I hesitated, then said the dumbest thing possible. "My parents are at home. They're out of town." Something about him changed instantly. His smile didn't disappear. It stretched, like he was carefully thinking something through. "You and your sister?" he asked. "Yeah, she'll be back later." "How later?" I took a step back, my stomach twisted. "I don't know." He didn't grab any ice cream. Instead, he leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Do you have cameras around your house? Any security systems? Surveillance?" That was it. That was the moment my brain finally realized I'd already shared way too much personal information with a stranger. I forgot something," I said, and I ran back to my house. I didn't look back. I slammed the door shut, locked it, then locked it again. I stood there listening, heart pounding, waiting for him to drive away. Eventually, he did. I turned on all the lights in the house and sat on the couch with the TV way too loud. Pizza forgotten, ice cream forgotten. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that he was just a weird guy. Still, being alone terrified me. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up with a dry mouth. The house was dark again, shadows stretching everywhere. The TV was still on, but quiet. My phone said 10 p.m. Kathy still wasn't home. I grabbed a bottle of water from the table and drank deeply. I was about to call my sister and ask her to come home when the cap slipped from my hand. It rolled across the floor and disappeared under the dining table. I sighed in frustration and walked over. The long tablecloth made it hard to see anything in the dark. I dropped to my knees and crawled underneath. I grabbed the cap and started to crawl back out. Then I froze. A soft click echoed through the house, like someone unlocking a door. My parents weren't home, and Kathy would never come in quietly like that. I heard it again, slower this time. The sound of a lock turning, the back door. My heart dropped into my stomach. Kathy had told me to lock the doors. I thought I had. I'd forgotten the back door. I stayed under the table, gripping the bottle cap so hard it hurt. My breathing sounded unbearably loud. Heavy but careful footsteps entered the kitchen. Whoever it was, they were trying to be quiet. The steps came closer, and I saw legs, thick, dusty boots moving slowly across the floor. Drawers opened, closed. The person moved into the living room, then down the hallway. He wasn't stealing, he was searching. My whole body started shaking. I bit down on my sleeve to keep from crying. Stay still, I told myself. If I don't move, he won't see me. The footsteps returned to the kitchen. They stopped right by the table. I saw a shadow lean down. I smelled him, sharp, sour, like sweat. Then a familiar voice whispered, "I know you're hiding. I'm going to find you." I thought I was going to pass out. My phone was on the couch. I couldn't call for help. If I screamed, I was dead. I prayed, really prayed, when the front door suddenly opened. "I'm home," Kathy called. Everything happened at once. The man ran. The back door slammed open, then shut. Kathy rushed inside, shouting my name, and found me under the table, crying so hard I could barely breathe. She called emergency services once I finally managed to explain about the intruder and the ice cream truck. The police found footprints near the back fence, no fingerprints, which meant he'd planned this. Nothing was stolen, and that's what still haunts me. He didn't come to steal. He came from me. The man was never caught. Without seeing his face, the police didn't have enough evidence, but I know it was him.